The warning lights flashed red across the bridge of the Vrylian diplomatic vessel. Ambassador Velthor stared at the display with tired eyes. Another rejection. The fifth one this week. The Council of United Systems had sent their final answer, and it was the same as all the others. No help would come. Velthor's hands shook as he closed the message. His homeworld had 3 months left. Maybe less. The Korth swarm was coming, and when it arrived, everything his people had built over 10,000 years would be consumed. Entire planets had fallen to the swarm. 17 civilizations had been wiped out in the past century. The Vrylians would be number 18. "Sir, we're detecting a vessel," his navigator called out. "Unknown design. Small craft. It's on an approach vector." Velthor felt a flicker of something. Not hope. Exactly. He'd learned not to hope anymore. But curiosity, perhaps. Hail them. The view screen flickered to life. A human face appeared. Velthor had never seen this species before. The human had dark hair, calm eyes, and wore a neat uniform. Behind him, the bridge of his ship looked clean and well-maintained, though the technology seemed simple compared to Council standards. "This is Captain Tae-Min Park of the Earth vessel Wanderer," the human said. His translator worked well enough. "We picked up your distress beacon. Do you need assistance?" Velthor almost laughed. Assistance. This small exploration ship wanted to help where the entire galactic community had refused. But he was tired. And what did he have to lose? Pride? His people were dying. "I am Ambassador Velthor of the Vrylian Empire," he said, keeping his voice steady. "Our homeworld faces destruction. The Korth swarm will arrive in 3 months. We asked the Council for help evacuating our research station on Thesara Prime's moon. They refused. Everyone has refused." Captain Taemin's expression didn't change much, but something shifted in his eyes. He leaned forward slightly. "The Korth swarm. We've heard of them. How many people need evacuation?" 12,000 scientists and their families," Velthor said. "But I understand if you cannot help. Your ship is small. One vessel can't." "We'll help," Taemin interrupted. "Simple as that. No negotiations. No demands for payment. No political calculations. Just 2 words. Velthor felt something crack inside his chest. "Captain Park, you don't understand. The Council has placed quarantine protocols on our system. They fear swarm contamination. Any ship that enters may not be allowed to leave. Your career, your ship, Ambassador," Taemin said gently. "Someone asked for help. We're not going to ignore that. Send us the coordinates. We'll need a few days to coordinate the evacuation, but help is on the way." "A few days?" Velthor repeated. "Captain, with respect, your ship can't carry 12,000 people." A small smile crossed Taemin's face. "We won't be coming alone. I'm sending a message to Earth now. Our fleet will meet us at your moon station." Fleet. The word hung in the air. Velthor wanted to ask what kind of fleet. How many ships? But he was afraid to push. Afraid this human might realize what he was offering and take it back. So Velthor simply sent the coordinates and thanked him. After the transmission ended, Velthor sat in his command chair for a long time. His second officer approached cautiously. "Do you think they'll really come?" "I don't know," Velthor admitted. "I've never heard of these humans before. Their ship is small. Their technology seems basic. But," he paused. "Did you see his eyes? He meant it. He really meant it." 6 days passed. Velthor's ship arrived at Thesara Prime's moon station ahead of schedule. The scientists there were already preparing for the worst. They'd been loading data archives onto portable drives, saying goodbye to research projects that represented decades of work. They knew no rescue was coming. Velthor had been honest with them about that. Then, the sensors started screaming. "Incoming vessels," the sensor operator shouted. Multiple FTL signatures detected. They're dropping out of faster-than-light travel now. Velthor rushed to the view screen. His breath caught in his throat. Ships appeared one by one, materializing from the darkness of space. Large ships. Battle-scarred warships with heavy armor plating. Clean white medical vessels with red markings. Massive transport carriers that could hold thousands. A construction barge bigger than some moons. More and more ships kept appearing, taking up formation in a protective sphere around the moon station. How many? Velthor whispered. 15 ships total, sir, the sensor operator said, his voice shaking. 3 warships, 5 transports, 2 medical vessels, 1 construction platform, and 4 support craft. 15 ships. The humans had brought 15 ships. The Council had offered them nothing. The Vrylians' own allies had sent thoughts and prayers. And these strangers, these humans nobody had ever heard of, had mobilized 15 vessels in less than a week. A communication came through. Ambassador Velthor, this is Commander Woojin Lee of the UES Horizon's Edge. Captain Park sends his regards. He's coordinating the transport schedules. We're ready to begin evacuation operations whenever you are. Velthor tried to speak, but his voice failed him. He cleared his throat and tried again. Commander Lee, we didn't expect. How did you gather so many ships so quickly? There was a pause. When Commander Woojin spoke again, he sounded genuinely confused by the question. This is standard humanitarian protocol, Ambassador. You said 12,000 people needed evacuation. We brought appropriate resources. Did we miscalculate? D. Standard protocol. These humans thought bringing 15 ships for a rescue mission was standard. Velthor felt dizzy. No, he managed to say. No, you calculated perfectly. Thank you. Thank you. The evacuation began immediately. Human crews worked alongside Vrylian scientists, carefully loading equipment and personal belongings onto the transports. The humans were efficient, but never rushed anyone. Velthor watched a human doctor kneel down to comfort a crying Vrylian child, speaking softly through a translator. He saw human engineers, helping elderly scientists, carry heavy cases. Everyone worked together like they'd done this 1,000 times before. Maybe they had. On the 3rd day of evacuation, the sensors picked up something else. Something that made Velthor's blood turn cold. The swarm, his sensor operator said. They've changed course. They're arriving in 5 days, not 3 months. Someone told them we're here. Velthor immediately contacted Commander Woojin. We need to leave now. The swarm is coming early. Your ships need to evacuate immediately. Understood, Woojin said calmly. Transmitting emergency message to Earth Command now. Hold position, Ambassador. Hold position, Velthor repeated. Commander, you don't understand. The swarm will destroy everything. We need to run. Help is coming, Woojin said. The same thing Captain Taemin had told him. Earth fleet is already moving. They'll be here in 2 days. Velthor wanted to scream. What fleet? What help could possibly arrive in time? 2 days later, he learned why. The sky began to shimmer. The first ship appeared like a ghost, materializing from nothing into solid metal and light. Then another, and another. They kept coming, dropping out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. Velthor watched from the bridge of a human transport ship, his hands gripping the railing so hard his knuckles turned white. Hundreds of ships. No, more than hundreds. The sky filled with them like stars suddenly appearing at noon. Warships bristling with weapons. Carriers launching smaller fighter craft. Hospital ships the size of small cities. Defense platforms being towed into position. Supply vessels. Communication arrays. Mobile repair stations. The humans had brought everything. How many? Velthor asked, though he wasn't sure anyone heard him over the chaos on the bridge. A human tactical officer named Yuna Han glanced at her display. Final count is 3,217 vessels, Ambassador. The entire Earth Defense Force. Well, except for the Home Guard. Someone needs to watch Earth. 3,000 ships. Velthor felt like he was drowning. His people had asked for help evacuating one research station. One station. And humanity had brought their entire military. This is a mistake, Velthor said, louder now. You don't understand. We can't pay for this. The Vrylian government doesn't have resources for even a fraction of this fleet. We asked for one ship. Maybe two. Not an entire armada. Captain Taman turned from his station. He looked tired, but calm. Ambassador, did we ask for payment? No. Then there's no debt. You asked for help. We're helping. A new face appeared on the main view screen. An older woman with gray streaks in her dark hair and sharp eyes that seemed to see everything at once. Her uniform carried more medals and insignia than Velthor could count. Ambassador Velthor, she said. I'm Fleet Admiral Hyejin Kim, Commanding Officer of Earth Defense Force. I understand you're concerned about the size of our response. Concerned? Velthor almost laughed. Admiral, you've brought thousands of ships. The Korth Swarm will see this as a military provocation. They'll bring even more forces. You've turned a rescue mission into a war. Admiral Hyejin's expression didn't change. Ambassador, the swarm changed course to arrive early specifically because you asked for help. That tells me they don't want you to escape. They want to kill everyone on that moon station, and they want to kill anyone who tries to help you. So yes, this is a war. But we didn't start it. She leaned forward slightly. You asked for help. We don't do things halfway. Now, I need to speak with your government. We have some plans to discuss. The Vrylian Council met with Admiral Hyejin within the hour. Velthor attended, mostly because he couldn't believe what he was hearing and needed to witness it with his own ears. You want to do what? Council Leader Theron demanded, his face showing the Vrylian equivalent of shock. Defend Thesara Prime. Admiral Hyejin repeated patiently. We're not evacuating your world. We're protecting it. That's impossible, Theron said. The swarm has never been stopped. 17 civilizations have fallen. The Council itself won't fight them. They consider it a losing battle. The Council hasn't fought with humans before, Hyejin said simply. She pulled up a tactical display. The hologram showed Thesara Prime surrounded by layers of ships, defense platforms, minefields, and sensor networks. We've established a defensive perimeter. Every approach vector is covered. We have rapid response squadrons ready to intercept any breakthrough attempts. Our medical ships are prepared for casualties. Our supply lines are secure. She zoomed in on the moon station. Your scientists are already integrated into our research teams. We're sharing data on swarm tactics. Your remaining military forces will fight alongside ours. We've assigned human pilots to train your fighters in our combat doctrines. Velthor noticed his daughter Sira in the tactical breakdown. She was a xenobiologist at the moon station, now working with a human doctor named Mi-sun. The two were analyzing swarm biology, looking for weaknesses. Sira looked more alive than she had in months. This will cost more than our entire planetary economy, Theron said weakly. Admiral Hyejin smiled. It wasn't a warm smile, but it wasn't cold either. Just matter of fact. Send us a fruit basket later. We're good. The meeting ended with Theron looking like he'd been hit by a transport ship. Velthor understood the feeling. Over the next 3 days, Velthor watched the humans work. They were terrifyingly organized. Every ship had a role. Every crew knew their job. They moved like a single organism. Thousands of parts, working in perfect harmony. Lieutenant Ji-Woo Song ran fighter training exercises with Vrylian pilots. Velthor observed one session, where Ji-Woo demonstrated human combat tactics. The Vrylian pilots were used to defensive flying, trying to avoid damage and survive. Ji-Woo taught them to hunt. Speed is life, Ji-Woo told the mixed squadron. Hesitation is death. When you see an opening, you take it. No thinking, no second guessing. Trust your training, and trust your wingman. A Vrylian pilot raised his hand. But what if we fail? What if we die? What if we die? What if we die? What if we die? Ji Woo's expression softened. Then we die, protecting people who need us. There are worse ways to go. But we're not planning to die. We're planning to win. The Vrylian pilot nodded slowly. Something changed in his posture. He sat up, straighter. Dr. Mi-sun worked with Sira and other Vrylian scientists around the clock. They'd discovered that swarm bioships were vulnerable to certain electromagnetic frequencies, not enough to kill them outright, but enough to disrupt their coordination. Mi-sun immediately shared this data with the entire fleet. We should keep this secret, a Vrylian scientist suggested. Use it as a surprise weapon. End quote. Mi-sun shook her head. Everyone in this fleet needs every advantage we can give them. Secrets get people killed. On the evening of the third day, Velthor found himself on the observation deck of the human flagship, a massive vessel called the Indomitable. Admiral Sang-Woo Baek stood nearby, watching the defensive preparations through the window. He was younger than Admiral He-jin, with a quiet intensity that reminded Velthor of a coiled spring. Why are you really doing this? Velthor asked. The truth, not the official answer. Sang-Woo was quiet for a moment. You know about Earth's history? Some. Your records show numerous wars. Conflicts between your own people. Oh, hundreds of wars, Sang-Woo confirmed. Thousands of battles. Millions dead. We spent centuries fighting each other over resources, territory, ideology, religion, skin color. We nearly destroyed ourselves half a dozen times. He turned to look at Velthor. We finally stopped. Know why? Velthor shook his head. Because we grew up. We looked at the stars and realized how small we were. How alone. We decided that, if we ever met other species, we'd be better than we were to each other. We'd be the neighbors we wished we'd been to ourselves. He gestured to the fleet outside. Every person in this fleet volunteered. We didn't draft anyone. 2. When Earth Command sent out the call, asking who would come to help strangers 50 light-years away, 3 million people applied. We had to turn people away. A human colony on Mars protested because we wouldn't let them send ships. They're too far out. Couldn't get here. In time. But the cost, Velthor said. The resources. We'll manage, Sang-Woo said. We always do. And honestly, we've been preparing for something like the swarm for decades. We built this fleet, hoping we'd never need it. Now we do. Better to use it saving people than let it gather dust. Alarms suddenly blared across the ship. Red lights flashed. Sang-Woo's casual demeanor vanished instantly, replaced by cold focus. Contact? Yuna Han's voice came over the comm. Korth swarm entering system. Numbers exceed projections. Estimate 40,000 hostile vessels. They're forming attack formations. Korth, 40,000. Against 3,000. The math was terrifying. Sang-Woo walked calmly to the bridge. Velthor followed, his heart's pounding. The view screen showed them. The swarm. Organic ships that looked like they were grown rather than built. Planet crackers the size of moons. Smaller fighter craft that moved in clouds like insects. They blotted out the stars. The swarm hesitated at the system's edge. They'd expected prey. Instead, they found predators waiting. Sang-Woo sat in his command chair and opened a channel. His voice broadcast across every frequency. In every language. Korth Swarm, this is Admiral Sang-Woo Baek of Earth Defense Force. Thesara Prime is under our protection. Leave now, or learn why humanity doesn't lose wars. Silence. Then the swarm began to move forward. Sang-Woo smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. All ships. he said quietly. Execute defensive formation Alpha. Prepare to engage. Show them what humans do for our friends. The first wave of the swarm hit the outer defensive line like a tsunami of organic matter and violence. Thousands of bioships surged forward, their forms twisting and pulsing with alien life. They moved together, a single massive organism bent on consumption. The human ships didn't retreat. They opened fire. Velthor watched from the command deck of the Indomitable as space lit up with weapons fire. Human railguns launched projectiles at impossible speeds. Energy beams cut through swarm fighters like knives through water. Missile volleys turned sections of space into fields of explosions. But what struck Velthor most wasn't the firepower, it was the coordination. Every human ship knew exactly where every other ship was. They never hit each other, never got in each other's way. They flowed around obstacles, covered gaps in the defensive line, and switched targets without missing a beat. It was like watching a dance, except the dancers were warships, and the music was thunder. Swarm fighters breaking through Sector 7, Unahan called out from her tactical station. Squadron 12 responding. Velthor looked at the display. A group of swarm biofighters had found a small gap in the defensive net. Before they could exploit it, Lieutenant Jiwoo's squadron appeared. 8 human fighters and 4 Vrylian pilots, flying in perfect formation. They tore into the swarm fighters like wolves into prey. Jiwoo's voice came over the comm channel, calm despite the chaos around her. Break on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark. The squadron split into pairs, each duo targeting separate swarm fighters. The humans flew aggressively, taking risks that made Velthor's blood run cold. They dove straight at enemy ships, firing at the last possible second before breaking away. The Vrylian pilots tried to keep up, and to Velthor's shock, they did. 3 days of training with humans had changed them. One swarm biocarrier pushed through the outer line, heading for the moon station. It was massive, easily the size of a small planet, covered in launch bays that spawned smaller fighters like a hive producing insects. Admiral Sang-woo saw it immediately. All available ships, target that carrier. We can't let it get close to the station. 20 human cruisers changed course, converging on the carrier from multiple angles. Their combined firepower hammered at the bioship's hull, punching through layers of organic armor. The carrier tried to defend itself, launching more fighters, but the humans had anticipated this. Fighter squadrons were already waiting, cutting down the smaller ships before they could form up. The carrier died slowly, its massive form breaking apart in chunks. But it had bought time for the rest of the swarm to advance. Second wave incoming, Unahan reported. They're changing tactics, spreading out, trying to flank us. They're learning, Sang-woo said. He didn't sound worried, just interested. Adjust defensive formation. Pull back the outer ring. Reinforce the flanks. Let them think they're surrounding us. Velthor couldn't stay quiet. Admiral, if they surround us, we'll be trapped. Sang-woo glanced at him. Ambassador, we brought our entire fleet. We're not here to run. We're here to teach the swarm a lesson they won't forget. The battle continued through the night, though in space there was no real night. Time blurred into a continuous stream of alerts. Weapons, fire, and tactical updates. Human ships rotated in and out of combat, cycling damaged vessels to the rear for repairs while fresh ships took their place. The swarm had numbers, but humans had logistics. Dr. Mi-sun's discovery about electromagnetic frequencies proved vital. Human ships, equipped with the proper emitters, began broadcasting the disruptive signals. Swarm fighters that flew too close started moving erratically, breaking formation, becoming easy targets. It wasn't enough to win the battle alone, but it helped. Every small advantage mattered. Velthor found Sira in the research lab during a brief lull. His daughter looked exhausted but determined. She was working with Mi-sun on refining the frequency weapon, trying to make it more effective. We think we can amplify the signal, Sira said, not looking up from her work. If we're right, It might affect the larger bioships too. Slow them down, at least. Mi-sun nodded, her fingers flying across multiple screens. The problem is power. We need massive energy output to affect something the size of a planet cracker. The only ships with that kind of power are the capital ships, and they're all busy fighting. What if we combined outputs? Velthor suggested. Multiple ships broadcasting together? Both scientists stopped and looked at him. Then, looked at each other. That could work, Mi-sun said slowly. If we synchronize the broadcasts perfectly, even a microsecond of delay would cause interference instead of amplification. Humans are good at synchronization, Sira said with a small smile. They sent their findings to Admiral Sang-woo. Within an hour, he'd organized 12 cruisers into a broadcast formation. They surrounded the largest swarm planet cracker and activated the amplified frequency weapon. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The planet cracker, which had been steadily advancing toward Thesara Prime, suddenly stopped. Its organic hull rippled and twisted. Smaller bioships clustered around it began spinning in circles, confused and disoriented. Human warships seized the opportunity, pouring fire into the stalled giant. It took 30 minutes to kill the planet cracker. When it finally died, breaking into massive chunks of organic matter, a cheer went up across the human fleet, not from the command staff, who remained professional, but from the crew decks. Velthor heard it through the ship's intercom. Humans celebrating a victory, even in the middle of a desperate battle. But the swarm wasn't done. They'd lost thousands of ships, but thousands more kept coming. They pressed harder, accepting horrific losses to push closer to the planet. Several human ships took critical damage. The destroyer Vigilant was torn apart by concentrated swarm fire, its crew evacuating in the final seconds. The carrier Resolute lost its entire flight deck, but kept fighting with its main guns. On the second day of battle, Velthor watched a swarm planet cracker break through the defensive line. It had taken severe damage, but still functioned, and it was heading straight for Thesara Prime's surface. If it reached the planet, it would begin the consumption process. Nothing could survive that. "I'm out of position," Admiral Heejin said over the command channel. Her flagship was on the far side of the defensive sphere. "I can't get there in time. I can't get there. I can't get there in time." Admiral Sang-woo looked at his tactical display. Then he stood up from his command chair. "All crew, this is the Admiral. Evacuate to escape pods immediately." "That's an order." Velthor felt ice in his stomach. "Admiral, what are you doing?" "My job," Sang-woo said calmly. He sat back down, now alone on the bridge except for Velthor and a handful of crew who'd refused to leave. Indomitable is the only ship close enough and heavy enough to do what needs to be done. He directed the massive flagship toward the planet cracker, engines pushing to maximum. The other bridge crew worked their stations in silence, helping their admiral aim the ship. The planet cracker saw them coming but couldn't maneuver in time. 10 seconds to impact," Sang-woo said. He looked at Velthor. "Tell everyone we tried our best. Admiral. Go. Now." Velthor ran for the escape pods. He made it into one just as the Indomitable crashed into the planet cracker's core. The explosion lit up the entire system, visible from every ship in the fleet. When the light faded, both the flagship and the planet cracker were gone. The fleet went silent. Then Admiral Heijin's voice came over all channels, hard and cold. "All ships. Admiral Sang-woo gave his life protecting this world. We will not let it be in vain. Resume defensive operations. Make every shot count." The humans fought harder after that. Velthor saw it in their tactics, in the way they flew, in the calculated risks they took. They weren't fighting for orders anymore. They were fighting for their fallen admiral. Later, Velthor learned that Sang-woo had survived. His crew had forced him into an escape pod at the last second, stunning him with a sedative when he'd refused. He was furious when he woke up in the medical bay, but alive. The battle raged on. The swarm kept coming, and the humans kept holding the line. For every human ship destroyed, the swarm lost 50. For every human life lost, the swarm paid in thousands. The math was brutal, but undeniable. On the third day, something changed. The swarm stopped advancing. They held position just outside weapons range, their massive fleet hovering like a dark cloud. Then, for the first time in recorded history, the Korth swarm attempted communication. "They want to talk," Yunahan said, staring at her console in disbelief. Admiral He-Jin, now commanding from a secondary flagship, leaned forward. "Put them through." The swarm's message was simple. Withdrawal, in exchange for safe passage. They'd never offered terms before, never negotiated. They consumed, or they moved on. This was unprecedented. Admiral He-Jin's response was immediate. "You should have thought of that before you threatened our friends. Continue your retreat. Leave this system. If we ever see you again, we'll finish what we started." The swarm withdrew. Slowly at first, then faster as human ships began pursuing them. Jiwoo's squadron and others chased them for 3 systems, destroying any swarm ship that tried to slow down or regroup. Thesara Prime was saved. But Velthor knew the real message had been sent to someone else. The entire galaxy had been watching. The cleanup took 3 days. Human repair crews worked around the clock, fixing damaged ships. Medical personnel treated wounded from both human and Vrylian forces. Engineering teams cleared debris fields, making space safe again for civilian traffic. The humans moved with the same efficiency they'd shown in battle, but now it was directed toward rebuilding instead of destroying. Velthor stood on the observation deck of a human hospital ship, watching the recovery efforts. His daughter Sira stood beside him. They'd survived. Their people had survived. Against all odds, impossible odds, they were still here. All because humanity had answered a desperate call for help. "The casualty reports came in," Sira said quietly. 417 human ships destroyed. 83,000 humans dead or missing. The numbers hit Velthor like physical blows. 83,000 people who'd died defending strangers. People who'd volunteered to travel 50 light-years to protect a species they'd never heard of until 2 weeks ago. "And Vrylian casualties?" Velthor asked, though he almost didn't want to know. 212. Most of them were pilots who insisted on fighting despite the humans telling them to stay back. Sira shook her head. "The humans shielded us. They positioned their ships to take hits meant for ours. They protected us, even while fighting a war." Down on Thesara Prime, human construction barges were already working with Vrylian engineers to rebuild damaged cities. The swarm's initial bombardment had destroyed infrastructure across 3 continents. The humans had brought materials, equipment, and expertise. They didn't wait to be asked. They just started helping. Dr. Mi-sun organized medical exchanges, setting up joint research facilities where human and Vrylian doctors could share knowledge. She told Velthor, it wasn't just charity. Humans wanted to learn too. Vrylian medical technology had advantages in areas where human science was weak. The cooperation would benefit both species. But the galactic community had very different views about what happened at Thesara Prime. The Council of United Systems called an emergency session 1 week after the battle. They demanded humanity's presence to explain their actions. Admiral He-Jin attended, bringing Velthor as a witness. Captain Taemin came too, along with several other human officers. The council chamber was enormous, with representatives from 200 member species. They all stared at the humans with expressions ranging from fear to anger to confusion. Velthor recognized that look. It was the same way people looked at natural disasters, at forces of nature too big to control. Council leader Mordak, a Zenthari with silver skin and 4 arms, spoke first. His voice echoed through the chamber. Humanity, you have violated 17 separate galactic laws. You mobilized a military force of unprecedented size without council approval. You engaged in warfare within a member system. You ignored quarantine protocols. Most seriously, you have revealed the existence of a fleet that was never registered with council records. Admiral He Jin stood calmly before the council. She didn't look intimidated. If anything, she looked bored. Council leader. With respect, the Vrylian Empire asked for help. We provided it. Which law says that's illegal? The law of proportional response, Mordak said. The Vrylians requested aid for an evacuation. You brought an armada. You turned a humanitarian mission into a military intervention. The Korth Swarm turned it into a military intervention, He Jin corrected. They accelerated their attacks specifically because someone asked for help. We responded to the threat as it existed, not as the council wished it was. A Felnorian counselor leaned forward, her cat-like features twisted in concern. But where did this fleet come from? We have monitored Earth for decades. You reported having 200 ships. You brought over 3,000. Were you hiding them? No, He Jin said simply. We built them quietly. We didn't advertise our military capacity because we didn't want to appear threatening. We hoped we'd never need to use them. Then the Vrylians needed help. And our hopes didn't matter anymore. You lied to the council, Mordak said coldly. We omitted information. He Jin countered. Just like the council omits information from us. How many times have council members refused to answer our questions about military assets? How many times have you told us that information was classified, or need to know, or above our clearance level? We played by the same rules you did. The chamber erupted in arguments, species shouting at each other, at the humans, at their own allies. Velthor watched it all and felt disgusted. These were the same people who'd refused to help his world. The same ones who'd written off Vrylia as an acceptable loss. Now they were angry because someone had actually done something. Mordak called for order, his voice cutting through the chaos. The council demands that humanity reduce its military forces to previously reported levels. You will dismantle 90% of your fleet. This is not negotiable. Admiral He Jin smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. No. The chamber went silent. No? Mordak repeated, as if he hadn't heard correctly. No. He Jin said again. We built that fleet to protect humanity and anyone who needs help. We won't dismantle it because you're uncomfortable with how many ships we have. If you wanted to control our military, you should have helped the Vrylians yourselves. This is outrageous. A Korthan counselor sputtered. You can't refuse a council mandate. Watch us, He Jin said calmly. We're not a council member species. We applied for membership 3 times, and you rejected us each time. You said we were too primitive, too violent, too unstable. Fine. We stayed independent. That means council mandates don't apply to us. Captain Tae Min stood beside Admiral He Jin. He spoke for the first time, his voice quieter, but somehow carrying further. We'll help anyone who asks. We'll defend anyone who needs it. And we'll do it with the full strength of humanity. Velthor couldn't stay silent anymore. He stood, drawing attention from the entire chamber. The council speaks of laws and protocols and proper procedures, but where were these laws when my people were dying? Where was the council when the swarm was coming? You offered us nothing. No ships, no resources, no hope, just thoughts and prayers and reminders to fill out proper forms. He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of counselors who'd refused his earlier pleas. Humanity answered our call in less than a week. They brought their entire fleet. They fought a battle that cost them 83,000 lives. They're still here, helping rebuild our cities, treating our wounded, sharing their knowledge. And you want to punish them for it? Ambassador Velthor, Mordak said carefully. You don't understand the larger implications. I understand perfectly, Velthor interrupted. The council maintains power by controlling who gets help and who doesn't. Humanity just proved they don't need your permission to help people. That threatens your authority. This isn't about laws or protocols. It's about control. A younger counselor, a Thexian named Ralna, spoke up. She'd been quiet throughout the session, but now she looked directly at Mordak. Ambassador Velthor is right. We didn't help the Vrylians because the political cost was too high. We abandoned them because it was convenient. Humanity showed us what we should have done. Other counselors started murmuring. Not all of them agreed, but enough were listening. Ralna continued. I've reviewed the reports from Thessara Prime. Humanity didn't just win a battle. They made the Korth swarm retreat. In 1,000 years of swarm attacks, that's never happened. Not once. The swarm has always consumed or moved on. They've never withdrawn. Because they were beaten. Humanity did that. She turned to face the entire council. We should be thanking them, not punishing them. And we should be asking ourselves why we couldn't do what they did. The debate continued for hours. Some counselors demanded humanity be sanctioned. Others argued for cooperation. A few even suggested humanity be granted emergency council membership, skipping the usual requirements. In the end, the council couldn't agree on anything. They issued a formal concern about humanity's military capacity, but took no action. They couldn't, really. Humanity wasn't a member species. The council had no authority over them, and no way to enforce their demands short of war. And after seeing what happened to the Korth swarm, nobody wanted that war. Velthor left the council chamber with the human delegation. Outside, in the corridor, Admiral Heijin let out a long breath. That went better than expected, she said. Better? Velthor asked. They threatened you, demanded you disarm. Yes, but they didn't do anything about it, Heijin said. Empty threats are just noise. What matters is what we do next. And what is that? Velthor asked. Captain Taemin smiled. We keep helping people. The Wanderer is being recommissioned for another exploratory mission. This time, with a specific mandate. Find species who need help. Find the ones the Council ignores. Over the next days, something unexpected happened. Messages started arriving at Earth's diplomatic stations. Dozens of them. Then, hundreds. Species that had been asking the Council for help for years. Decades even. And been ignored. Border colonies. Being raided by pirates. Research outposts. Facing natural disasters. Refugee populations fleeing wars the Council deemed too complicated to intervene in. They all had the same basic message. Can you help us like you helped the Vrylians? Earth's response was always the same. Yes. We're on our way. The Council watched nervously as human ships began spreading across the galaxy, responding to calls for help. They couldn't stop it. Couldn't control it. Humanity had become what the Council claimed to be but never quite achieved. A force that helped people simply because they needed it. Velthor stayed on Earth for a month as an official liaison between Vrylia and humanity. He watched as more requests came in. Watched as humans organized response teams, mobilized resources, sent ships to distant systems. They didn't help everyone. They couldn't. But they tried. They actually tried. On his last day before returning home, Velthor met with Captain Taemin. They stood in Earth's orbital station, looking down at the blue and green planet below. Your people are remarkable, Velthor said, but also frightening. You have the power to conquer half the galaxy. We could, Taemin agreed. But we won't. Conquest is easy. Building trust is hard. We'd rather be known as the species that helps than the species that conquers. The Council will never fully trust you. Probably not. But the people we help will. That's enough. Velthor returned to Thessara Prime a week later. His homeworld was healing. Cities were rebuilding. People were returning to normal lives. Human ships still patrolled the system, making sure the swarm didn't return. They'd stay as long as needed, Admiral Heijin had promised. Walking through the restored streets of his city, Velthor saw human construction workers eating lunch with Vrylian engineers. Saw human children and Vrylian children playing together in a rebuilt park. Saw the beginning of something new. The galaxy was changing. Humanity had made sure of that. 6 months after the Battle of Thessara Prime, The galaxy looked different. Not physically, but in the ways that mattered. Old alliances were being questioned. New ones were forming. And at the center of it all, humanity continued doing what they'd always done. Showing up when people asked for help. Velthor stood in the Vrylian council chamber, now rebuilt with both Vrylian and human architectural styles blended together. It was a symbol of what his world had become. A bridge between two species that had found something rare in the galaxy. Genuine friendship. The latest reports from Earth show they've responded to 47 different requests for assistance in the past 6 months. Council Leader Theron said, reviewing the documents on his display. They've stopped 3 pirate operations, evacuated 2 colonies facing environmental disasters, and mediated 7 border disputes. And they still maintain a defensive garrison here. They're stretched thin, Velthor observed. 3,000 ships sounds like a lot. But across an entire galaxy, it's barely enough. Other species are starting to contribute, Syrah added. She'd become the primary liaison between Vrylian and human scientific communities. The Ralnathi offered to provide supply ships. The Thexians are sharing sensor technology. Small contributions. But it's something. The door to the chamber opened. Admiral Heijin entered, along with Captain Tae-min. They'd become regular visitors to Vrylia, coordinating joint operations and defense strategies. Heijin had aged noticeably in 6 months. The weight of command was visible in the lines on her face. Ambassador Velthor, Council Leader Theron, Heijin said formally, then smiled. Good to see you both. The reports we've seen are impressive, Theron said. But I have to ask, how long can you maintain this pace? Your ships need maintenance. Your crews need rest. Your resources have limits. Everything has limits, Heijin agreed. She sat down, looking tired. We're doing what we can, where we can. We've had to turn down some requests. That bothers me more than I can say. But we're also inspiring others to help. That's something. Captain Tae-min pulled up a star chart. It showed the galaxy with markers indicating where humanity had responded to calls for help. The Council is paying attention now. They can't ignore what's happening. Species that were abandoned for years are getting assistance. Some from us, some from other independent powers who are following our example. The Council is also getting nervous, Velthor said. I hear things through diplomatic channels. Some counselors see humanity as a threat to their authority. Are we? Tae-min asked. Not defensively, just genuinely curious. Yes, Velthor said honestly. But not the way they fear. You're not threatening their territory or their resources. You're threatening their relevance. When the Council is supposed to provide protection and support but fails, and then humans show up and actually help, it makes people question why they need the Council at all. Heijin was quiet for a moment. That's not our goal. We don't want to replace the Council. We just want people to get the help they need. I know, Velthor said. But intentions don't change outcomes. The galaxy is shifting. Some species are already talking about forming new alliances, ones that include humanity but exclude the Council. Over the next weeks, those talks became action. The Vrylians, Ralnathi, Thexians, and a dozen smaller species formed what they called the Mutual Defense Coalition. It wasn't meant to oppose the Council, exactly, but it existed outside Council authority. Member species agreed to help each other in times of crisis, sharing resources and military support. Humanity was offered leadership of the coalition. They refused. We're not here to lead, Admiral Heijin told the coalition's first assembly. We're here to help. If you want us to coordinate joint operations, fine. If you want us to share technology and tactics, we're happy to. But this is your coalition. Your decisions. We'll support you, not command you. That response somehow made the coalition trust humanity even more. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the Korth swarm had gone quiet. After their defeat at Thesara Prime, They'd retreated to their territory and stayed there. Scouts reported the swarm was consolidating, rebuilding, possibly preparing for future attacks. But they were being cautious now. They'd learned that not every species would run from them. Lieutenant Ji Woo Song, now promoted to commander, led joint training exercises between human and allied pilots. She'd become something of a legend. The human who'd taught others to hunt instead of hide. Vrylian pilots who'd trained with her spread her tactics throughout their military. Other species requested similar training. The key is mindset, Ji Woo explained to a group of Thexian pilots. You're not trying to survive the battle. You're trying to win it. There's a difference. When you fly to survive, you're defensive, reactive, scared. When you fly to win, you're aggressive, proactive, confident. Fear is natural, but don't let it control you. A Thexian pilot raised her hand. But humans died at Thesara Prime. Many of them. Doesn't that scare you? Of course, Ji Woo said. I'm terrified every time I fly into combat. But I'm more afraid of letting people down, of not doing my part. That fear pushes me forward instead of holding me back. The pilot thought about that, then nodded slowly. Dr. Mi-sun continued her work building medical partnerships. The hospital she'd helped establish on Thesara Prime had become a model for cooperation between species. Vrylian doctors worked alongside human physicians, each learning from the other. They were making breakthrough in treatments that neither species could have achieved alone. This is what I hoped for, Mi-sun told Velthor during one of his visits to the hospital. Not just humans helping others, but everyone helping each other. Sharing knowledge freely, because it saves lives. Sira, working beside Mi-sun, added, We're preparing a joint publication on swarm biology. It'll be freely available to all species. If the swarm attacks again, everyone should know their weaknesses. The Council won't like that, Velthor warned. They prefer to control information. The Council can deal with it, Mi-sun said cheerfully. Information that saves lives should never be restricted. Back on Earth, the response to the galaxy's changing dynamics was mixed. Some humans were proud of what their species had accomplished. Others worried about overextension, about taking on responsibilities Earth couldn't sustain. There were protests, debates, entire political movements built around the question of humanity's role in the galaxy. But when new calls for help arrived, volunteers kept signing up. Ships kept launching. Humans kept showing up. Captain Tae-min's ship, the Wanderer, was exploring a distant sector when they received a distress signal. A small colony of Felnorians, refugees from a civil war in Council space, were being harassed by raiders. The colony had asked the Council for protection 3 times. All 3 requests had been denied, deemed too expensive and politically complicated. Tae-min didn't hesitate. Set course for the colony. Full speed. His crew, a mix of humans and Vrylians now, moved efficiently. They'd done this before. They knew the routine. Jump to FTL. Arrive at the crisis. Assess the situation. Help however they could. When they arrived, they found a small settlement of maybe 5,000 Felnorians living in basic shelters. The raiders, a group of 20 well-armed ships, were demanding tribute. The Felnorians had nothing to give. The Wanderer wasn't a warship. It was an exploration vessel with light weapons. But Tae-min also had something else. A direct line to Earth Defense Force. Within 6 hours, 2 human frigates arrived with Relnathi support ships. The raiders took one look at the response and fled without firing a shot. The Felnorian colony leader, an elderly woman named Sarith, thanked Tae-min with tears in her eyes. We've been asking for help for 2 years. The Council said we weren't a priority. You came in hours. That's what we do, Tae-min said simply. You needed help. We came. Why? Sarith asked. We can't pay you. We have nothing of value. Tae-min smiled. You have your lives, your community, your culture. That's valuable enough. Besides, We're not here for payment. We're here because someone asked. Word of the Felnorian rescue spread quickly. More requests came in. More species started questioning council priorities. More alliances formed outside traditional power structures. The council called another emergency session. This time, they didn't summon humanity to defend their actions. Instead, they invited them to discuss cooperation. Admiral Hai Jin attended with Velthor. The council chamber felt different now. Less hostile. More cautious. The councilors knew they were dealing with a power they couldn't control or intimidate. Council leader Mordak spoke first. Humanity, we acknowledge that your actions have been beneficial to many species. Your assistance at Thesara Prime set a new standard for humanitarian response. We would like to discuss ways the Council and humanity can work together in future crises. What changed? Heijin asked bluntly. 6 months ago, you wanted us to disarm. Now you want cooperation. None. Mordak's silver skin darkened slightly, the Zenthari equivalent of embarrassment. We were wrong. The Council has always maintained that centralized authority is necessary for galactic stability. You've proven that independent action can be equally effective, sometimes more so. Will you help next time? Heijin asked. When a species asks for assistance, will the Council respond? Or will you wait for someone else to do it? The chamber was silent. Councilors looked at each other, uncomfortable with the question. Finally, young Councilor Ralna spoke. That's what we need to decide. The Council was built on principles of mutual support. Somewhere along the way, we forgot that. We let politics and economics override our duty to help. Humanity reminded us what we're supposed to be. Other councilors nodded. Not all of them, but enough. We can't promise to help everyone, Mordak admitted. We have limitations. Political realities. Resource constraints. But we can do better than we have been. And we can coordinate with independent responders like humanity to ensure someone helps those in need. That's a start, Heijin said. Over the following months, cooperation slowly grew. The Council shared intelligence with humanity about potential crises. Humanity shared tactical data about the swarm and other threats. It wasn't perfect. Old habits and suspicions died hard. But it was progress. Velthor watched it all from his position as Vrylian ambassador to humanity. He'd moved to Earth permanently, becoming the first alien resident on the human homeworld. His apartment overlooked the Atlantic Ocean, a view he never tired of. Captain Taemin visited often. They'd become genuine friends, bonded by the shared experience of first contact and everything that followed. Do you ever regret it? Velthor asked one evening, watching the sunset over the ocean. That first day, when my ship intercepted yours? If you'd known what would follow, all the battles and politics and complications, would you still have agreed to help? Taemin didn't hesitate. Yes. Every time. The complications are worth it, if people are safe. You've changed the galaxy, Velthor said. Maybe not the way you intended, but changed it nonetheless. The galaxy changed itself. Taemin corrected. We just showed that helping people doesn't require permission from authorities. Anyone can help. Everyone should. Far across the galaxy, on dozens of worlds, humans and aliens work together. Building cities, sharing knowledge, defending borders, exploring new frontiers, the Mutual Defense Coalition grew stronger, adding new members monthly. The Council slowly adapted, remembering its original purpose. The Korth swarm remained in their territory, quiet but not defeated. Everyone knew they'd attack again someday. But next time, they'd face not just humanity, but an alliance of species who'd learned to fight together. Lieutenant Commander Ji Woo Song led her squadron on patrol along the swarm border. Mixed crews of humans, Vrylians, Ralnathi, and others flew together, watching for any signs of aggression. Dr. Mi Sun published her 10th joint research paper, this one on trauma treatment techniques that combined human and Vrylian medical approaches. Hospitals across the galaxy adopted her protocols, saving countless lives. Admiral Heijin retired at age 65, handing command of Earth Defense Force to younger officers. She'd earned her rest, but she remained active as an advisor, helping coordinate the increasingly complex network of alliances and mutual defense agreements. Admiral Sang-woo, who'd survived his sacrifice attempt at Thesara Prime, took up teaching at Earth's military academy. He trained the next generation of officers, teaching them not just tactics but ethics. Power without compassion is tyranny, he told his students. Compassion without power is useless. You need both. Quote, and Captain Taemin? He kept exploring. The Wanderer jumped from system to system, charting new space, making first contact with isolated species, and always listening for calls for help. One day, a distress signal came from a small colony on the edge of known space. They'd been ignored by the Council, abandoned by their neighbors. They had 3 months before a natural disaster would destroy their settlement. Taemin read the request and smiled. He'd heard this story before. He knew how it ended. Send a response, he told his communications officer. Tell them help is on the way. Behind him, his crew, human and alien working together, moved to their stations. They'd done this before. They'd do it again, as many times as needed, because that's what decent people do. The galaxy had asked humanity for help. Humanity had answered with everything they had, and in doing so, they'd shown everyone else that helping wasn't optional, wasn't limited to the powerful, or the rich, or the influential. Anyone could help. Everyone should. And slowly, finally, the galaxy was learning that lesson. The Wanderer jumped to FTL, heading toward another crisis, another call for help, another chance to prove that kindness, backed by strength, could change everything. The stars watched, ancient and distant, as humanity and their allies rewrote the rules of civilization, not through conquest or domination, but through the simple, revolutionary act of showing up when someone needed them. The galaxy would never be the same.